I had just been with the children for a few weeks and only begun civilization. As we were chatting one day during snack time, I realized they were trying to describe a sound they didn't understand, an echo. Fortunately, not far from our facility, there was a bell tower which was surrounded by other buildings. We took a field trip to the tower area. Standing about a block away from the tower itself in the courtyard of the other buildings, the children were having a delightful time. They thought we were just looking at buildings. Suddenly, the bell rang. Their heads went back, and they looked at the sky and heard the sound echo in every direction. They understood immediately and giggled in joy and awe. It would not ring for another hour, so we found a patch of grass and sat down to wait. They talked for a long time contentedly about the buildings, the people passing between the buildings, the reason the bell rang, what made the echo, and how great a summer day it was. They had begun to sprawl out in many patterns and shapes, soaking up the sun and the grass and the trees and the leaves. They were almost asleep. I said, "If you promise to return directly to me, you can run after the echo when the bell starts to ring." They jumped to their feet and watched the sky. The bell began to ring again, and they flew away like birds being startled from a bird feeder. They went in all directions at once and laughed, easily dodging the people walking nearby, laughing and squealing softly. The boys made it nearly to the opposite buildings, but the girls hovered nearer the tower itself. All the people paused to watch them, smiling and waving. Several people came to their windows to watch. When the sound stopped, they all ran back to me and fell onto the grass. They were in heaven. Many weeks later, civilization was in the Greek era. When the priest asked where the church was, I told them about the temples and all the various gods and goddesses, ending with Apollo. I told them that the people believed that Apollo would answer their prayers if they asked at a particularly sacred temple in the mountains. Grady said, "How could he do that?" I explained that years later, scholars and priests traveled to the same temple and said their prayers, starting with, "Hear me, mighty Apollo." And what they heard was, and I pointed to Grady and waited. He thought carefully and then beamed. He stood up and imitated me, saying, "Apollo." I then pointed to each child so that they had to overlap the name until it came out. "Apollo, Apollo, 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 Apollo." They did it 2 more times and clapped in satisfaction. We went on with our projects. One day when summer was nearly over, I had arrived with a new baby doll for Allison to care for. I entered the room and everyone was working at a different activity. Some in pairs, some at tables, 2 in the loft, a few in housekeeping, and 2 building with blocks. I saw Allison was almost by the back door. I held up the doll and called, "Allison," and without interrupting or even looking up for their work, they took turns saying, "Allison, Allison, 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 Allison," in the most beautiful imitation of a rippling echo you have ever heard.